discrimination, poverty, and pollution come to mind for you. What what comes up when you think about that in our country today? Let's start with that. That's where I want to get to. So, what have you been able to see and notice? And anybody should be feel to ring Nancy. Let's start
What
with you.
we have to do is think about Flint, Michigan, um, or think about other communities that where environmentally hazardous construction takes place. It's generally in areas that where the residents are lower income or minority communities. You don't put refineries in upper class neighborhoods. So this is a general problem you'll see all over.
So, what was it about? Why was Flint so adversely affected and not Ann Arbor? Do you think?
Poison water.
Say that again, Stella.
Poison water.
There was poison water, right? But why was what was it about Flint that made them bear the brunt of that?
Poor infrastructure for the city.
Mm-hmm. So right, so there's a kind of a cycle here that cities rely on a tax base to upgrade their infrastructure, and if you have a city with that's in poverty, the tax base is lower, the infrastructure degrades, and it becomes a vicious cycle.
You also have a situation where people who have money and understand the environmental laws can pay the attorneys and the to move the businesses where they want them to be and keep them out of the areas where they are.
Right.
Also,
go ahead. Yeah.
Also, if you look at inner cities, there are a lot of areas that are food deserts.
Right. It's interesting because the decision around Flint to not upgrade the pipes was it. You know, there was also it wasn't just unconscious too, right? So that people in power have that people in power have authority to make decisions that can affect different populations differently, and that the effect of that, Nancy, what you're talking about in terms of food deserts, is also goes with the same cycle of that. I think you can be traced back to the redlining even, right? Where you have a neighborhood that gets fewer resources, doesn't have the consumer base that attracts larger supermarkets. You know, it.
Right. You see the quality of the food. People mostly shop at the dollar store, and there are no fresh vegetables.
Right.
And actually, it adds to the comorbidities with environmental factors or even COVID, because then you have other conditions, whether it's hypertension, diabetes, which is
Correct.
more common, and
Right.
then you have other issues that just compound it and make those populations more vulnerable.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. And there's an article that we're going to share a kind of a for further reading list at the end of the program. But one of the articles was a sort of powerful New York Times article that talks about how even in Philadelphia, people of color and African Americans have a higher, particularly what you're saying. They've faced it's become more clear during COVID the disparities and the disparities in health impacts that are exacerbated by the poverty.
Right, and even the housing, more concentrated areas, and then having to use public transportation to get to where one has to go, you just more vulnerable. It's like a perfect storm.
Yeah, and there's the same article I mentioned, which I can't remember the title of right now, but it talks about how in the Grays Ferry area of Philadelphia, where the Energy Solutions refinery was situated till it blew up a couple of years ago. Um, the rate of asthma was 5 times the national average in that neighborhood because of the refinery. And when you have compromised asthma, you're more likely, as you said, to have poor outcomes with the pandemic.
We heard a speaker with Philly Thrive that was talking about the plant explosion, and they were also stressing that the air quality in that area around the refinery has historically been much worse and not reported. And to the point where, of course, the children have like 5 times higher rates of asthma, but it also has affected the development of their brains and their ability to pay attention in school. So right from the start, the people who were living around the area of the refinery that eventually blew up were starting from behind the 8 ball because their children weren't able to potentially get as much out of school as they would have if they were able to pay attention better and concentrate more.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you started this whole conversation about redlining, because it just kind of hit a chord with me, struck a chord with me. I mean, I think a lot of the problem we're facing today, redlining enabled populations to be segregated and separated, and it just facilitated the separation of wealthy from unwealthy, for racially, whatever. And by having neighborhoods like that that have no political power and no economic power, all the garbage just got thrown that way. So I think it's interesting. I hadn't really seen it that way, but redlining is really critical. If you can separate the wealthy from the unwealthy, and so forth, it really makes it easier to just pile the garbage onto the disadvantaged populations.
Yeah, Susan.
To add to that, the fact that when you think about the powers of regulation or deregulation, it's really not just one extreme or the other, but the fact that factories, refineries can be out of compliance and just pay fines. It costs them less to pay the fines to keep abusing the earth and the environment. And that seems unconscionable.
Right. So what this is pointing to, well, I want to show a couple, this is good. I want to show a couple of, just a couple of slides just to give a piece of the national picture of what we've been talking about anyway. But before I do that, I think what it points to is that issues of environmental justice are issues of justice, first and foremost, and that that is what calls to us as Jews in our work. We each have the capacity to do, to see this as an issue of justice that we can act on. Right. So we can be empowered to do that. So I wanted to just share a couple of slides that just clarify some of the pieces we've been talking about anyway. But the first is on environmental racism. There's different ways that it's been defined, but this is just one way is that that waste, pollution, and climate crisis disproportionately affect people of color, whether by conscious design or institutional neglect. So I think there's a way in which communities of color experience a more adverse impact. And when you look at questions about the fossil fuel infrastructure, a report by the Clean Air Council, joined with the NAACP, I think did this report a few years back. They noted that African Americans are actually 75% more likely than other Americans to live in fence-line communities. Some might call these also frontline communities, areas that are more vulnerable to toxic hazardous waste. That's an incredible statistic that I think is, again, going back to that issue in the history of redlining that we talked about, and that that almost 7 million African Americans live in counties with oil refineries. I mentioned about the asthma rates in Chester, which are similar in other areas. And just in terms of your general day-to-day exposure, Black Americans are exposed to 1.5 times as much of the sooty pollution that comes from burning fossil fuels, which directly affects asthma rates. A piece I also wanted to talk about, which we actually heard a fair amount about as we were talking in the beginning of our program these last couple days, but yesterday in particular, the Biden administration put out several executive orders, and one was looking at creating for the White House a White House Environmental Justice Advocacy Council. So this is a timely moment, but that environmental justice is sort of the response to environmental racism. So it's that you kind of hold this principle in mind that everyone, this shouldn't sound so crazy, right? Everyone should have the right to equal environmental protection, the right to live in communities that are safe and healthy, that everyone deserves the right to a good quality of life, and you shouldn't have to suffer a quality of life just because you're in a particular zip code, right? Disproportionately. And that a thing to keep in mind, which I think the Biden administration is trying to take this to heart, is that even well-meaning environmental policy can still sometimes have a disparate impact. Was someone asking a question, or should I keep going? I think I'll keep going. So an example of that is there's an initiative now that Pennsylvania is working on joining called the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. That's an initiative that says that all the power generating plants in a state will basically get a carbon budget to lower the amount of carbon they emit as they generate electricity. And that over time, that cap on the carbon emissions drops. So it's an initiative to lower the carbon emissions from power generation. A power company can say, you know what, I can't build a clean power plant so quickly, so I'm going to buy offsets for my emissions. And in order to do that, I'm going to pay for some projects that are clean energy projects somewhere. It could happen that an area that has a very dirty power plant in a poor community of color, the power plant generator might choose to invest in a different area of the state for their clean energy and keep polluting in that area that is already polluted. And so environmental justice says we need to keep that issue in mind, that even when you're doing a positive policy, there can still be disparity of impacts. So I think we have time. I wanted to also just show a little bit of a piece about the story of Chester. This is just one piece of the story of Chester. It goes to what Lee and some others folks were talking about. What does it look like when communities have lost their economic base, their power base, to be able to stop kind of pollution from coming in? And I'm just going to show you a clip from this documentary. What the clip talks about is that it's a PBS documentary, Chester is a predominantly African-American community, very lower income on the Delaware River. And in 1992, a waste incinerator was sited in Chester and began operating. It was, I think it was a Westinghouse plant. I think the community first welcomed it because they had lost a lot of their economic base. And so there was, promises that this would bring some jobs and money into the area, but it brought a lot of other stuff as well, right? It brought a lot of waste pollution, noise pollution, toxic, harmful contaminants from the site, and it started to engender some resistance and protest relatively quickly, and you started to see some organizing happen. So this is a documentary that talks about the organizing that happened in one particular figure, Zuline Mayfield. So I'm just going to share just a clip that talks about her, and then the story of Chester, and then we'll come back in a few minutes. So let me just go to this clip, and you might have to turn up your volume a little bit. And this is Zuline, so we'll play it from here. Oh, hang it. Sorry. Give me 1 second. There we go.
To come.
There was rumors that there were other companies that were coming. It was like, okay, we're going to hit this community with everything all at one time. It's no way that they can fight us.
Between 1986 and 1996, the PA Department of Environmental Protection issued 7 permits for commercial waste facilities in Delaware County. 5 were in Chester.
Chester's 4.8 miles long, highly condensed. Everything is compacted in close proximity to each other. There should have been some scientist somewhere and said, wait a minute, the cumulative effects, that should have been paused because they were not permitting facilities in other communities. Even though at times there had been applications, the permits were denied. But they saw fit to issue permit after permit after permit after permit after permit in little old Chester. Why? Is there a beacon or something? Which drawing these companies here? They were being drawn here because they felt as though this was the path of least resistance because of the way that people view communities of color. Point blank, period.
In the 1990s, landmark toxic waste and race studies were conducted in the U.S. The term environmental justice began to surface.
Environmental justice refers to the ability of people, regardless of their race or income or nationality, to participate in decision-making of environmental regulations that affect their lives, in particular the siting of what would be considered locally unwanted land uses, but also protection from pollution, protection from environmental insults.
The strategy was that we were going to scream at the top of our heads until we could find a way to stop them.
Stay in the line. Somebody get back in the line. Get it out of here.
Bring the media, bring the press, bring the noise. This is who we are, this is why we're doing this is what this is about, this is what this represents to us. We're in a fight for our lives. At one point, one of the companies had sent their entire workforce up to our office. I guess to intimidate us and to intimidate me personally. There were also threats being given to the neighbors about what they were going to do to me. They started a fire at my house. My car tires were always slashed. Windows were always busted out at my house with my car. They broke in the office. They would trash the office. They wrote KKK on the office. In looking back, there were a lot of reasons why I should have been afraid. I wasn't scared. I was pissed because you have a position, I have a position. I'm not coming over there burning up your plant. Why are you so afraid? Because I'm not afraid of you. You got millions of dollars, an army of lawyers, security, workers, but y'all scared of little old me. I don't think I was an agitator. I think I was a person who has a right to stand up for themselves. This was a very personal fight for me because I could rattle off names of people in my family who had died from cancer. So it's like, okay, who's the next obituary are we going to read?
In 1994, President Bill Clinton issued an executive order on environmental justice. Soon after, Chester was chosen as subject for a 6-month environmental risk study by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.
They found that 90% of all toxic releases in Delaware County were from Chester area sources, that Chester has the highest infant mortality rate in the state, more than double that of the county. The mortality rate, the general death rate, and lung cancer mortality rate that were 60% higher of the rest of the county.
It's really difficult to link environmental injustice to human health because there's so many intervening factors, and also because the really toxic stuff tends to go into or around communities that are very poor. And there are so many different things that can impact the health of poor people. But there is a health connection. There's also a justice and equity aspect to environmental injustice. It impacts the value of their homes. It impacts their quality of life. It impacts their children's education. It impacts everything about their life in a way that's really unjust.
Okay. I could have shown more. I encourage people to see the full documentary, but I think that at least it gives a little taste about what this piece of a bigger story. And I want to actually just give us a few minutes to process this. I thought it might be useful for us to get into slightly smaller groups to do this. So Anna, I think I might have you do some breakout groups, and the questions, I don't think I'll put them in the chat, but because I think they're simple enough for you. You know, first is just what's coming up for you as you're having this conversation. That's always a place to start. But what's it like to sort of see a documentary like that and to try and process that information? You know, what's challenging about putting your mind to an issue like this? I know for me, it's not something I thought about growing up, and it was only when I started to I did a training for Green Faith as in environmental leadership, and one of the pieces we did a unit on environmental racism, environmental justice. So we did tours. We went and did toxic tours. So we went to, you know, different places, but, you know, like went to New Jersey and saw the neighborhoods, and then it starts to came alive for me. You know, also if you want to share, like, what gives you energy to keep doing this work, what gives you hope even in spite of seeing this. So that's a lot of different questions. Take in whatever direction you want, and let's just take 5 or 6 minutes. You got to unmute, Rabbi Anna.
Maybe if you could put some of those questions in the chat and people can access them while they're in the breakout groups.
Yeah, I have to do that. I have to do that before the breakout rooms happen. So I'll say quickly, what is it like to process this information, and what gives you hope, and how are you doing? How are you feeling right now? How about that? Okay, you can choose to answer these or others that just come up for you, and just take about 5 minutes in your group.
Okay. All right. So everyone, you just need to say yes to join your breakout group.
And I may stay in the main room, I think.
Same here.
Okay. And I realize we may have some other folks who.
Okay, I'm going to move a couple people who have not. Nope, we're good. Okay, I'm going to move one person. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm happy to stay here and chat with folks on the in this room too, if we want. But.
Okay, yeah, we've got room 6 is empty, room 5 is full, room 4 is full, room 3 is full, room 2 has like 2 people. So I'm thinking that I'll move them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just so they're not lonely.
Yeah,
I'm going to go into that room for a sec.
sure. Hi, Mariana. Oh, such a great picture of you and your puppy. I got a glimpse there. Your dog. Oh, so nice.
They're actually good.
They're good. Okay.
Yeah, no, the two of them, they're my congregants and they're both, they have what to say.
Okay.
So it's good. It's kind of works out well that they are a party too.
Okay.
Marcia and Marianne, do you want to join them? What do you think?
Are you talking to me, Rabbi?
You.
Join who?
Norma and Barry. Barry is a new member of the Tikkun Olam committee. He's really cool.
Oh, sure, sure.
Okay, I'll put you. Let's see how I can do this.
Some fancy footwork with the breakout rooms there.
I'm trying. Actually, Marianne, I don't see you in the breakout rooms. Nope, Marianne, you're supposed to be in that group and you didn't join.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You were supposed to be there.
Can you re-invite them?
I don't know. Move to, it gives me an option for room 1 and no, it doesn't. I think, Marianne, you have to go down to breakout rooms at the bottom of your screen and click join.
She may not have.
I don't have anything that says breakout room.
Yeah, I think only hosts or co-hosts sometimes get the breakout room icon.
Oh, wait a minute. No, I do see
Oh,
something.
you do.
It's not at the bottom, but.
Okay.
Yeah, it's different for you.
Okay.
Success.
Nice.
Yeah, I find that I'm very good at doing breakout. Oh, Marcia moved to a breakout room and she's alone. She's alone. So I'm going to put her in room 2.
Okay.
Because I guess she figured out how to do great breakout rooms along with Marianne. I think that's what happened. Everybody has 4 people in them.
Okay, nice. That's good. I want people to have that's great. I want to have time to talk. So.
So I need to warn you, Jill Gordon, I don't know, Jill, if you can hear, but Jill's the incoming president of our congregation. So we have to be careful what we say.
Keep it all above board.
I can hear, so you have to be careful.
Jill, nice to meet you.
Same here. I'll put my earplugs in. Go ahead.
Can you show your screen so Nathan can meet you?
Yeah, I'm just.
See how nice you are?
Oh, I'm not really. I'm in I had to drive up to Newark this afternoon, and I just kind of out of juice.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Here I am. So
you're chilling, but you're still.
Yeah.
You're still here. You don't have to keep your screen on, but nice to
meet you, and thanks for running this program tonight.
Sure.
I was hoping my son was going to join me, but I think I lost him to a ball game.
Nathan and I have been through thick and thin. We led services together at the Reconstructionist Convention. What else? I don't know. We've done a lot.
I mean, just a lot over the years. So
Yeah.
Good. All good.
Well, it's nice
I
that
used to date his his brother-in-law.
Brother-in-law, right? All in the family.
was that when you were in school, in rabbinical school?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can I tell you, it's not, I think it's not so much of a secret. He's moving to Philadelphia.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Yes. Well, he has family here, so we.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Jill, when you start?
July 1st.
Okay.
That's
You've got a little
officially
time.
when I start, but
She
yeah.
already started.
What?
You already started in a way.
Yeah.
In a way, yeah, in a way.
Because I'm going to you for things that, will affect the congregation, after July 1st. So.
Right. Do you are you on the board now and then you just move into yeah?
I've been on the board for a very long time. I've really dodged this for years.
And she thought, oh, it's a pandemic, perfect time for me to become the president.
So I did, we had this call the other day with these consultants about talking about the board retreat, what we, just getting educated and learning about what we might be able to do. And so he's asking all these interesting questions. And I said, I will figure it out, but I know there's a reason why I dodged this for years. And why is it now? As I'll really transition as we won't be coming out of the pandemic, but we will be kind of coming out of the darkness a bit.
You'll in a different space, yeah.
There is a reason.
I feel like every person who's been president has been president in the right time.
Yeah.
It's good. You'll be on the other half of walking across the Red Sea. You'll be past the midway point. Maybe why don't you give people a minute warning or something like that?
Yeah. I was just thinking that. Broadcast message to all.
So you're in media, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I live in Mount Airy, but my synagogue's in media. My congregation's in media.
My husband grew up in Broomall.
Mm-hmm.
At the Temple Bethel there.
Okay. Yeah. It's there's not a lot of synagogues in Delaware County. So
no.
Small but mighty. Yeah. But
is it a large congregation in media?
Ours is, decent size for reconstructions. We're about 150 member units. But, I think the challenge is it's not like a big growing Jewish community in general there. And so as people start aging out, as people start aging more, we're getting a grayer congregation. The challenge is sort of attracting young families. So we're noticing like that's the work.
Should I close the rooms?
Yeah, I would close the
room.
room.
Give them a minute before it closes.
Yeah. Once you close it, that gives them a minute anyway. So.
Okay. What is Ezra going to be doing back in Philly?
I don't know if that's fully. I think he's doing freelancing. I think he's trying to figure it out. Yeah, nothing. There's no set job here.
Yeah,
it can go on and on.
Well, good luck to him.
Thanks. Yeah, Stella, welcome back. Stephanie, welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Did you have a good discussion?
It was interesting, yes.
Yeah. Pretty bright woman, that Stephanie Milner.
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
And pretty too.
Got it. I got it from my mother.
That's the right answer, Stephanie.
So welcome back, everyone. Trying to get on at the buzzer. Yes, I hear you. I'm sure there was more to say than there was time. But I wanted to, before we kind of move towards some closing pieces, just wanted to take a little bit to see if there's anything you wanted to lift up from your conversations. If, you don't have to repeat the whole conversation, but just if there's a point or two that you were talking about in your group that you want to share.
Well, the one thing I find very disheartening, one of my neighbors has most of her family in upstate Pennsylvania, and the pipeline is something they've wanted because they got money, also getting sick and dying. But no, they want the money.
Yeah, it's that goes back to this issue about, power and vulnerability.
Yeah.
Well, that's somewhat similar things that we raised, that, you take the pipeline, it's short-term economic gains versus long-term consequences. And there's so much economic insecurity and other problems that, it doesn't elevate to environmental concerns, because a lot of people's main issues they're confronting are so immediate that they can't, they care about the environment, but they have to worry about something more fundamental.
I think that's a really good point. Like, I think environmental concern is a luxury that we have the ability, that those who are fortunate enough to have food on their table and to know where they're sleeping that night are afforded. And a lot of the times the people environmental injustice affects the most are the people who aren't able to really do anything about it, which is obviously why things like this are so important. And the people who can do something about it should be doing something about it.
Yeah, Lee, we'll take a couple more comments.
No, it's Jeff, actually.
Oh,
Lee,
Jeff, I'm sorry.
This is Lee.
Right, Jeff. Okay, sorry about that.
I think it's maybe the best way to approach this is, we have a lot of economic problems, health problems, and various other problems. The environmental problem right now may fall down a couple of notches on the list of all the other problems we're dealing with. There's a tendency, but maybe the best way to package environmental activism is as a potential solution to some of the other problems. And if we can invest in environmental improvements, then that can be a way to create jobs and, improve the education and whatever. Maybe that's the proper way to deal with this. It's part of the solution to a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, no, and I know that even with the federally with the COVID relief package that's being discussed, there is serious discussion about how do you include sort of green jobs in that package. But I do think that this notion about having to choose between sort of immediate money benefits and health and environment is it's a false dichotomy, right? That we should all, it should be a fundamental principle that we should all be, as the environmental justice sort of principles go, right? We should all have access to a healthy quality of life, no matter what our zip code, and that are, at all levels of government should be sort of integrating that as a principle. And that's part of the work that we get to do as citizens, is to advocate in that direction. I just wanted to, first of all, it's great to sort of see the energy and the interest. There's a lot more to talk about, and my goal here tonight was just to begin the conversation. And I want to encourage you and myself too that the first is that we, our tradition says, what's greater, Torah or action, right? And lots of debate. Some say go do, and some say study. There's not really a different, that studying leads to a better place of knowledge and better action. So I want to encourage all of us to continue to have these conversations as a way of learning and studying and getting sort of more of the nuances of these issues. The other piece is that when you are talking about issues like race and poverty, there's not just one access point. So the pipeline or stopping a refinery, making sure a refinery cleans up, that is a great access point, but so is ensuring a good public health system for all, right? Ensuring access to high quality food, ensuring high quality education. Like they all overlap and work towards each other. So I think that's important to keep in mind as well. The other is that this work is not done alone. It's not done by individuals. It's not just done by one synagogue. This work has to be done in coalition. And this is really an amazing time, even though we're in the middle of COVID, to continue to work on building broader coalitions. And so I think that can be sort of something for your community to think about, as we all can, about how do we build coalitions with communities that are bearing the brunt of the impacts. How do we support them, and what are the ways to sort of build those bridges? And that's a great set of conversations to have that I definitely would support. And finally, just thinking myself that because it's Tu B'Shvat, that you know, we also do have a clock that is still ticking around our climate overall, and that you know, our Mishnah says that we're not going to finish this work. That is, even if we stopped all of our carbon emissions tomorrow, we would not see any impact on that for 40 years. That's how long it's going to take, right? So we have work to do so that our children and our grandchildren will hopefully live in a world that has moving in the right direction again. But that's the scope that we need to think about this. And I want to build a future where all of our children are safe and not experiencing environmental catastrophe, but also we're not just our children, but every child really has access to the high quality of life that they deserve. That no child should have to be born with defects that lower their level of learning, like they were in Graceberry neighborhood. Like that shouldn't happen. So may this sort of shock us, but give us impetus to keep doing this work. So that's my final comment. I don't know if there's any other final pieces that anyone else wants to share, or I'll turn it back to you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for your talk. It was very useful. But what's the name of that video? How would one access it? Because it was a good example of actually people organizing to stop an event. So, you know, I'd like to see the whole thing if I could.
Sure. Susan, you want to talk about resources?
I wanted to make sure that I had everybody's email, because I have a resource page to send out to you. I didn't have it ready for today because there's actually an event coming up. I wanted to confirm that we have the speaker and the date for another event that we think you'd be interested in, about individuals rising up to deal with the folks who fought the Keystone XL pipeline. That's an event. We have somebody speaking to us, hopefully May 2nd, but don't write it down yet. But it'll include the link to the video, to this film, and a companion article that I found that describes it in writing, not the film per se, but the whole history of really what the film shows, as well as another number of resources that we think you'd be interested in. So that'll come out in the next couple of days.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan.
And I think I do now have everybody's email address. There's a Cheryl and a Bonnie. That's the only, I'm not sure because I don't have last names, but Bonnie Gold, I do have, never mind. But if there's a Cheryl, I don't know if it's our Cheryl or somebody's Cheryl, but if you want to add your email address so I can send it to you. Thank you.
Great.
And I want to thank you, Rabbi Nathan. I think Rabbi Anna had to leave.
Okay.
For the evening.
My pleasure, and really thank you for the work you're doing. It's really great to be having all these looking at these issues. It's so important and be having these discussions. So I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, thank you. I think the last word is some of you know and maybe have seen at the header on our flyer for this event that the Tikkun Olam Committee has, over the past 3 years, tried to address these systemic structural issues in our society by first trying to tackle, it's maybe not the right word, but economic injustice, and then looking into environmental injustice, because obviously if we don't have a planet, all the other issues will not matter. So we were looking and teaching ourselves about environmental issues. And of course, racial issues are always bubbling up and have for 4 centuries at least. And so we're really looking at how they intersect. And as you yourself said, Rabbi Nathan, that if we can't really solve one without solving the other two, they all intersect. So on that note, I thank you very, very much for being here together. And I look forward to seeing every single one of you at another event, at our synagogue, at your synagogue, at another place, online and Zooming, until we can all be together in real time.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be well, everybody. Thank you. Okay. Save this. Thank you. Okay, I'm saving the chat and we're good. Oh, look at Marianne.
I saw that. That was so sweet. Her dog. Love
That's
that.
her, and that's her, what are we calling her? Her pandemic puppy. She has a pandemic puppy. It's her Chaiwini.
Nice.
Apparently, who she was actually going to try to take kayaking, but at the last minute they decided not to. They were down in Florida, or was it in Appalachia? They have a home also in Appalachia, and they're very big outdoors people. And the Chaiwini, she had a vest and everything for the Chaiwini, but
Wow.
no, it didn't work. So.
Well, Susan, Yasher Koach, really nice work. I know you put a lot of effort into this program. So,
Well,
You know, could I say something? There are young people who are interested in these issues. My granddaughter's down in New Orleans in Tulane University. She's
Yeah.
graduating this year,
Great.
and she's studying sustainability and the environment and all that stuff. I don't know what the topic, the course is called that she's taking, but this is what she's interested in.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, Stella, that Mark and Dara's son, I don't know if you were there, he spoke to us a year ago in January. Ari
I was in Florida. I probably didn't know.
Oh, right, because that was before Zooming, but we Zoomed with him in December. We did a program on newish Jewish economic issues.
I think I saw that.
So
Yeah.
Ari is on campus. He's now taking a gap year, but he's been an engineering student at the University of Pennsylvania and is a leader in the anti-fossil fuel movement on campus. Has done some great work. So yeah, they're not just, as the kickoff panel said at this Jewish environment. They said it's not just that older folks need to listen to the youth. We have to actually
Join with them.
You got it. Invite them onto our boards.
Yep.
Make sure that they're invited to be partners, not because they don't want it just all dumped on them. They want it integrated.
Right.
That's
So
right.
got a lot of work to do, but one step at a time. So thank you so very much, Rabbi Nathan. Thanks for being here, Stella. Oh, and she's back.
I'm back. I just wanted to come back. I had to collect the Dara from downstairs and bring her up.
Yeah, the orchestration of the evening rituals, I know. And Rabbi Nathan, how old are your girls now?
Oh, I have a daughter who's just starting high school this year, which is crazy to believe, and my son is starting middle school in 5th grade.
Okay, I misunderstood.
Oh, youngsters.
Yeah. It's great. Oh, lots of fun every day,
Yes.
right? Older kids.
Older rabbis with younger kids. That's how I feel.
I know where that, I'm there. I'm there. Yep. And I always said, if they're not, when they weren't making me older, they were keeping me young, which is that side.
Right.
That's part of it to this day. So.
All
Okay.
right, good. Well, I'm gonna sign off, but good to
Continue. Okay. Thanks so much. Good
All
night.
right, yes,
Thank you
yeah,
so
send me
much.
send me what
Very
you come up with too. CC me on the
Oh,
sheet. I'd love to
absolutely.
see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Thank you. Bye-bye. And just
Bye.
Good night. Thank you, Nathan.
good night
Bye, Anna.
and the evening for all. Oops. Nope, I don't want to make you a host. I want you to leave. Okay.